Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video here, this is going to be a two-part. So what we're going to be doing is actually constructing this fence and creating the drawing. Now the first video that you're going to see is going to be just me doing nothing more than drawing this. We're going to use the paper space style of putting this on a title block. So if that's something you're interested in, you can follow along and watch me draw this part. And then in the second video, you're going to actually see me go through paper space and put the dimensions on it and things of that nature. So what you're looking at here is one drawing, and I have, this view, I have this view, and then I also have a second page where I construct this view. So all of this stuff is going to be shown over these next two videos. So I hope that you enjoy watching this. This is, things like this is something that you can physically see, that you can create. And I actually enjoy drawing this one because you can see kind of some of the curvatures and some of the things that are coming to life. So I hope you enjoy this one just as much as I do. Once again, this is kind of an older video that I found in my archive. So I hope you enjoy this one, and I would love to hear your comments on this one. And once again, I hope you enjoy it. And if you find any entertainment or enjoy seeing me create this, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me. But this is going to be a first part of a two-part video. All right, so sit back, follow along, and enjoy. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do at least the drafting of this one just to create the fence. I'm going to try to stay keep giving you guys fractions instead of giving you decimals, but every now and then I may slip up. So I'm going to try my best to keep them in fraction form as according to the drawing. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is just create a long line going down. Make sure I turn my ortho on, and I want to go down about a distance of 20. And I know some of you might be looking at that I have this on decimal. I can switch to architectural, but this will take fractions, and none of our numbers, as I can see on the drawing, are super incredibly large where I would have to use some kind of architectural units. So I'll create a line that's at 20. Let's go ahead and create another horizontal line going across the top, 10. And now let's go ahead and move this line from that midpoint to that end point. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to offset this line down a few times. So I'm going to go to offset. I'm going to type in 3 minus 1 divided by 2, and that stands for 3.5. And that's going to create that line. The next one I'll go ahead and offset is 1.5, so I'm just going to go back to offset. 1 minus 1 divided by 2. And I'll go ahead and create those two. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and offset the 1 1/4. So I'm just going to go to offset 1 minus 1 divided by 4. And I'll go ahead and create that line there. Okay. Let's go ahead and create the arc that's on this line. So I'm going to use the arc, start in radius. I'm going to click on this intersection to that midpoint, and I'm just going to move my cursor off to where I can see the arc actually forming. 6 enter. Alright, so for this one I need to go ahead and offset this line 1/2 of 3/4. So I'm going to offset it 3/8. I'm going to offset 3 divided by 8. I'm just going to offset this line one time to this side. Alright, now I can go ahead and create my arc from this intersection to that end point. Now I'll use the same one, start in radius. I'm going to click on this intersection to that end point, move my cursor a little bit just so I can see it forming, and now I'm going to put in my 1 1/2, so 1 minus 1 divided by 2. Alright, so now I have that shape created. If you want, you can go ahead and pull this line down, so I'm just going to use the grips. And I'm going to come right to where that end point is. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is go ahead and locate my circle. And I'm going to do that just by using the offset command again. So offset, I'll put in my distance. which is going to be 1 minus 5 divided by 8. Select this line and go to the outside. Next thing I need to do is locate the center of my circle. Back to the offset command. 5 minus 1 divided by 4. And I'm going to select here. So now that intersection is where my circle will be. Use a circle, center radius. Click here, and the radius of that circle will be 5/8. So 5 divided by 8. Alright, so everything now is completed to about where we need it to be. I have my circle center located, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete these two lines. And this outside line here is reference to that arc at the top. I'll go ahead and delete that as well. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and create an arc that's going across this. I'll go back to my start end radius. I want to start here. I'm going to end here at that intersection. And now my radius should be 1 minus 3 divided by 16. And now you should have that arc looking like so. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is, since I have this line, I'm just going to offset down that 1 3/16. Offset 1 minus 3 divided by 16. Okay, so now I need to go ahead and create the arc that's going to here. Back to my start end radius. I'm going to start at this intersection. I'm going to end at that intersection. And now my radius for this one, 1 minus 3 divided by 8. So now that I have those two there, I'll go ahead and do a little trimming. I'll use the trim command. I'm just going to hit enter to bypass. And now I know I have to take off that part, and I can get rid of the lines that are in between here. Alright, so now I've taken care of all the basic geometry that I needed to create that with. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of mirroring. But first, let's go ahead and erase these lines. Mirror command. And I'm going to select all of my objects that I just created except for my beginning two lines. Enter. From that intersection down to the midpoint, or if you have your ortho on, just go straight down. Next thing I need to do now is go ahead and offset on the inside of these the part that's at the top. So I'm just going to go to offset, and that distance between each of those is 1/2. So it's going to be 1 divided by 2. I'm just going to select these and offset them to the inside. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is just clean these up. I'm going to use the fillet command. Always check your radius. It's set to 0. Enter. Now use the multiple option. And always pick on the two sides that you want to keep when you use the fillet command. And that should clean up like so. And now you can see that we have created the top part of our fence. Let's go ahead and put the other part that's on here. So now I'm going to go back to the offset command. Type in 7 minus 7 divided by 8. I'm going to go ahead and offset this down. Now I'm going to draw two circles. So I'm going to go back to the circle command, and I'm going to place it at this intersection. And that circle has a radius of 5/8. Go ahead and copy this circle to the other side. Okay, you can go ahead and get rid of this line if you like. But before I do that, I'm just going to offset it one more time. So I'm going to choose the offset command. I'm going to type in 10 minus 5 divided by 8. And then I'll offset that line to the bottom. So now I have the bottom of this location. Let's go ahead and delete that line. And do a little trimming on the inside here. So I want to just trim these objects. Enter. And now I'll go ahead and clean this up. Okay, let's take a look at the bottom here. If you want a super quick command that'll knock those out for you, remember the EX trim command. And now if I select this line and I select at the bottom, everything should go away. And now I'm just going to trim off the sides. Alright, so we have this created. Let's go ahead and offset this line over to create some of the other steps. So I'm going to choose the offset command. I'm going to put in my distance of 2 minus 3 divided by 4, enter. Next I want to select the middle line there, and I'm going to choose this multiple option, and now I'm going to offset 1 here, that's 2 for the middle one, and 3 for the other one. So now I have all these lines. I'm just going to extend this line out a little bit more just by stretching it. I'm going to offset a distance of 3 minus 1 divided by 2, or 3.5. I just want to offset this down. So now I have this object that I need to place at that intersection, and it also needs to be shrunk down a little bit. So that's what the note is telling you on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the copy. Just going to select these objects along the top. Enter. Click here. Scale. Select your objects. From that endpoint, 3 divided by 4. Move these objects from that top endpoint to that intersection that's located here. Alright, so now I have those two objects placed the way I want them. I can go ahead and get rid of this line as well. I'm just going to go ahead and offset this line off just so I can get my thickness at the bottom here set. So I'm going to choose the offset command. 3 divided by 8. Offset once to both sides. Trim. I'm going to select these two lines. And what I want to do is just trim in between them. And I'll come back at the top here and I'll just go ahead and delete these two lines. A little bit more trimming on the inside here. Just want to make sure everything in there is all nice and trimmed up. Okay, so now we have those two done. Now I can start working on the parts that's in between these two. So I can kind of work on the circle parts. So I'm going to take a look at sheet 2, and that has all the information that I'm going to need for that bottom part there. Okay, so next let's start building here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to offset this line up a distance of 2 1/4. So I'm going to offset 2 minus 1 divided by 4. So that's where I'm going to start offsetting, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to offset this line up another 3/4. And now what I'm going to do is just extend these lines over to the other side here. So extend, I want them to go here, and I'll select these two lines. Okay, so from here, I know that my circle is right in the middle of these two. That's where my center of that circle will be. So I can choose a circle center diameter. If I shift and right click and choose the mid between 2 points options, I can now select that intersection and that intersection, and it'll put between them. Distance will be, the diameter is 1. Next I'll go ahead and put a circle center radius around that. So come to here. I'll go to this center. And sometime when it's stubborn, it won't pick the center. Remember, you can hover over that point and just start using the tab button. I'll click here. And now it has a radius of 1 minus 1 divided by 4. I mean, yes, 1 minus 1 divided by 4. So now I've created my bottom part. And now I can start working on the top portion of this. So it tells me that when I offset this line up a distance of 3, and then the next thing I need to do is go ahead and offset this line up a distance of 1 1/4. And finally, I'll go ahead and offset up one more time a distance of 1. This is going to be where I'm going to need to start creating my shapes from. Alright, so now I just need to offset. And this time I think I'll work with doing them both. So I'll choose the offset command. 3 divided by 4. I'm going to select this line. I'll go one time that way, and then I'll come back and put the other one this way. Alright, so now I know I can go ahead and fill in my radius here. So I can use my start end radius. Like I did with the first one, I'm going to start here, end here, and my radius is 1 minus 1 divided by 2. And if you want, you can go ahead and mirror that to the other side. Or you can just hold out on it and wait till we get the other one. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is go ahead and create some circles along the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is draw a circle, center radius, from this center, and now the radius is going to be 2 minus 5 divided by 8. And what I'm going to do next is just offset this circle up to that distance. So I'm going to choose the offset. I'm going to go from this quadrant to that perpendicular, and now I'll go ahead and offset my line to that distance. Let me just go ahead and get rid of the bottom portion of this before it gets a little in my way here. So I'm just going to use the trim. I'll select my 2 inside lines here. And now I'm just going to kind of trim these back to where I can see them. Next thing I need to do is I'm just going to go ahead and mirror these going up to the other side. So I'm going to choose mirror, select these 2 lines, and I'm just going to go from that intersection, and if you have your ortho turned on, you can just go right across. And yes, I want to keep both of these. Alright, and the next thing I need to do now, you can notice that the radius of those are still the same. So I'm just going to mirror this down, and then I'll come back and I'll clean it up. So now I'm just going to use the mirror. And I'm just going to go across this endpoint here. I'm going to mirror one more time these 2 objects going across this way. Now I'll go ahead and use the trim command and just trim these few objects. So if I trim these like so, I get this shape. It tells me what radius that it wants on the inside of those. And that's going to be our 1/8 radius there. So if I choose the fillet command, change my radius to 1 divided by 8, you'll see that this will actually bend the way you want it. So I have this shape created. Let's go ahead and mirror this to the bottom. And then that way I can have that shape on the bottom one. So what I'm going to do is to save myself a step, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this line here. Let's go ahead and delete actually a few of these other lines, since we're right about at the end of all of the stuff that we're going to need on this shape. Okay, so now I'm just going to mirror these objects down to the bottom. And I'm going to go from that endpoint down to this endpoint. I'll go ahead and delete this line now. And this is kind of the tricky part. We just need a gap in between these two lines here, or these two circles. So you can use the break command if you want. And remember, with the break, just select, and I can separate these again. I just hit the enter button to come back to the break command. So I can do it that way. And now I can go ahead and put my fillet onto that, which is a 1/16 of an inch. So I can go back to fillet, change my radius, 1 divided by 16, enter. I can choose this multiple option. So now when I select these two, I'll get that circle that's on these points. Alright, down here at the bottom, let's do some more trimming and cleaning up. Just go to trim, enter, since I don't have that much to trim through here. So I know I want to trim here and through here. And I also want to trim, and I'm just going to kind of try my best to walk these back so I don't have to come back later and do any kind of erasing. And I'm just going to trim those, and I'll come and I'll trim that part. And if you want, go ahead and trim this line in between here, and I'm just going to kind of walk these over to that point. Okay, so all of that stuff is done. Do a little bit more cleaning up. I can trim between here, and you can see I left a little gap there. I'm just going to use the undo button. Now I'll come back and I'll take care of that piece. And I'll continue to trim up into that portion. Alright, so I have all of this part done, which is nothing more than now if I just mirrored this across to the other side, that'll be done. And the last thing I would have to do is go ahead and put the bottom portion on this point. Okay, so let's just go ahead and mirror that across. So I'm going to use the mirror command, and I'm going to select all of these objects, enter, and I'm just going to go from this end point, and once again, if your ortho is turned on, just go straight down and enter. Look like I did forget a step here, and I'll show you exactly where I forgot it. I forgot to actually go ahead and fillet these. So I'll come back to the fillet command. My radius is going to be 1 divided by 8. And I have multiple, so I'll go ahead and place my fillet along here. And I'll do it on the other side. Okay, I'll do a little final trimming here. And I just want to trim off these gaps in between here. Once again, I'm going to kind of walk these back so it'll save me from coming back and deleting later. Okay, so I have all of that part of it done. Now let's start working on the bottom. Let's go back to the offset command. I'm going to offset a distance of 1. And I'll come back and offset another distance of 1 1/4. So now I have both of my lines created. I also have the midpoint of these lines. And now I just need to go ahead and offset at a distance of 1. So come back to offset, 1, enter. And I want to go ahead and take care of this part here. So now I know that that part starts here and it comes down to this point. Go ahead and use my start end radius. And once again, I know my circle need to go in a counterclockwise rotation. So I'm going to select that intersection to that end point. And now I need to put in the radius, which is 2. And then the next thing I need to do from this one is I have a arc that's going down from here and it's going to here, and it has a radius of 1. So my start end radius, I'm going to create that circle in a counterclockwise rotation. So I'm going to start here and then to that intersection, and now that one has a radius of 1. So I do have my shape actually created now. Go ahead and delete some of these lines. And now I'm just going to mirror these two across. Just by using the mirror. Select these two lines, enter, and I'm going to go from this end point as long as I come straight up and enter. And it looks like something, I may have hit a wrong button. I'll try that again, mirror. Go and select those two lines. That end point I'll come down and hit enter. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and get rid of some of these lines. And I can delete these lines now at the end. Just go ahead and zoom the extent. So now if you have all this created, now you're ready to go ahead and actually do the dimensioning and everything else you need for this drawing.